We are ready to call this meeting of the Facilities Subcommittee meeting for Wednesday, March 20th, 2024 to order. With that, we have Trustee Lopez Cepeda here with Trustee Arancibia, I believe, on the way. So first order of business was to call to order. Second order of business is public communication on posted items. Ms. Quirk, are there any communication?
Not at this time.
Thank you, Ms. Quirk. So now we can move on to the main items for this agenda is item C, 1, 2, and 3. Item 1 is the facilities and capital program update. Item C2 will be the master plan introductions, and C3 is a discussion around next steps. So with that, Ms. Quirk, it is your floor.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Aguirre, for the introduction tonight. Janaea Quirk, Assistant Superintendent for Facilities and Operations, joined by Mr. Jason Bruss, the Director for Planning and Construction. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you tonight to give you an update on where we are from a facilities perspective and current projects and where we're headed in the next many months to come. So we're going to jump right into it. Tonight, we're doing just a high level. I think everybody here, we all kind of know where we are. So I'm going to introduce the projects to you very quickly and give you a quick update about where we currently stand. This is a rendering for Castle Park High School new stadium. We are officially, as of last week, DSA approved. We begin the bidding process this week and are on track to start construction for this project on June 6th, right after graduation, right here in 2024, just a few months out. And this is a picture of the beautiful facility that's on its way. Following that one, slightly different because these are our promotional flyers as well. This is Mar Vista High School, also in DSA right now, currently estimated for construction in November of 2024, but we are moving seamlessly through DSA with that project as well. DSA for Chula Vista High School, we are submitted to DSA as well for Chula Vista and are tracking a winter, we're saying at construction start time, that will ebb and flow a little bit as our projects are under construction, making sure we're timing that properly so we get the proper bidders that we want to have come out for our project and we're not bidding against ourselves. So from a timing perspective, winter could be anywhere from December to February from our lens in terms of pacing that out, but we are on schedule. Southwest High School is actually pending DSA review. We are finalizing the design elements for this project. As a reminder, we have a slight stagger on this construction, which is slated for fall of 2025, in alignment with the next issuance for Measure DD to fully fund that project. We are completing its design. We will have it shelf ready to go on the street as soon as those funds are readily available to us. We have pulled forward nothing major, but significant for the school site, the marquee for that campus. We pulled that out of the original scope, and we're actually, we approved that last month and are in the process of getting that installed. So we're trying to continue to signal to that campus that we are, yes, indeed, on our way, and their facility will be completed. Olympian High School, we were all there, those of us present, literally, including Omar back there, last week while we did our groundbreaking ceremony. We are officially under construction for this new 12 classroom building and some quad improvements to this facility at Olympian. One thing that's important to note for Olympian and for our next project, Eastlake, the modernization of the library, is that which starts construction in June. We've already, we did the board award for that this last month. Is both of these projects, and we're hoping this is an ongoing trend, have come in $2 million below the estimates.
Nice.
So we have been in an area of significant volatility with costs. We are not seeing a reprieve in that. We are scratching our heads. We are diving in with our respective teams to try to figure that out. But we are happy to take those bids at those values with competent and ready-to-go contractors. So hoping we see that same vibration continue as we bid our stadium projects. East Hills Academy, they reached out about a year ago and said, hey, we need help. We have burst with students with limited capacity and flexibility. We need more space for augmentation. They have a lot of services that they provide to students in terms of counseling services, et cetera. And they were literally racked and stacked on top of each other. So placing a new building for a school psychologist, other ancillary offices, doing some quad improvements, and kind of threading their connectivity to the Olympian campus a little bit more tightly, but with full access as well to the campus. So this project is moving rapidly, and we anticipate bidding this work in the winter of 2024. Otay Ranch High School, while not the most beautiful rendering, it's a perimeter fence project, and while it is little, it is mighty. For those of us that are familiar with Otay Ranch, they are a campus that has multiple areas of entry that we are trying to tighten up and provide a more solid perimeter. And so where you see the orange on here do indicate the locations that we will be doing fence improvements. It's pretty significant in nature. It's not going to solve all of our problems over there because of the uniqueness to how this campus was originally designed, but it will certainly be improved. Bonita Vista High School, new building and quad. That is a rendering of what our new building will look like. It is going in right next to the new stadium facility, and it will be threaded from a property perspective to the stadium for a seamless transition. This is a 16,000 square foot CTE focused building with a twist, with a dance. We have some portables in the middle of the quad that we're removing till we can open up the quad. The lower picture on the right hand side will show you, while it won't be as mature as that when it gets planted, that is what a snapshot of a portion of what their quad will look like in the future in terms of this design. And we are happy to say that we are submitted to DSA and in the review process. Also, looking for a winter 2024 construction start. Mar Vista Academy Student Services Building, also submitted to DSA. We have switched the front door to Mar Vista Academy, and we're putting them around the corner for a new student services building, which also has 2 Mod Severe classrooms and hygiene rooms associated to it. And then the building on the left in the bottom right corner is actually our new events building. So we're demolishing 2 buildings and replacing them with 2 new buildings. An events building, student services with Mod Severe suites. Yes, ma'am.
So now the front of Mar Vista Academy will not be on Thermal, but be on the other
It will face
street?
the parking lot.
Yes.
For the
What is the name of that street? I always forget. Thermal sticks in my head, but yes.
Yeah, Thermal is
And
that
Thermal
one.
goes this way. And currently, the admin faces Thermal.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be around the corner
Corner.
and
Where the bus
Halo.
pickup
I was
is.
going to say it's a H word. Halo.
Yeah.
It will be facing on Halo by the parking lot. Correct.
Bus
Okay.
pickup, okay,
Which
thank
is
you.
also where the parking lot is, so
It
from
is.
that perspective, it's a little bit more commonsensical.
Yes.
Yes,
And we'll talk a little bit more about Mar Vista Academy. They're going to be one of our sample sites that we'll talk about for the master plan, so we can get into some of those changes as well. Because that'll also explain some of our approach to the master plan
okay.
in general. Again, we're looking at a winter 2024. Clearly, we're going to be very busy as we round the corner from the fall, and it really will become a race to see like who comes out, make sure we're not bidding against ourselves. With these new buildings, we don't have the same limitations as we do with the stadiums because there's a plethora of contractors out there. We are specific about the stadiums because we want to make sure you have the unique experience of installing stadiums in the fields in particular. And so we do a pre-qualification. We will do regular pre-quals, but we will be able to organize these in pretty steady pace in terms of our bidding. So we will be busy from, I would say, late fall through the winter with these projects getting out. This here is Castle Park High School, their new 2-story building and quad renovation. I think it's interesting, also submitted to DSA, estimated construction in winter 2024. I think it's really interesting to look at the different aesthetics of each of these buildings as it relates to the campus and the community to which they reside. They all are very unique in the way that they are presented here and will be in terms of their aesthetics. Granger Junior High, new building. This building here is in design, not yet submitted to DSA. We anticipate construction in spring of 2025. Hopefully we see that a little bit sooner. This is an events building with a band and art associated to it, plus the PE facilities. And so it's kind of a one-size-meets-all and quad improvements. We are doing a bunch of other significant work on this campus. It's kind of chopped up in some weird ways. And by the time we're finished, it's all going to be connected, and we're moving. We have students on the other side of campus that there's an unusual transition, but all the classrooms will be migrated over to, I'll call it the east side of the campus. And then the west side will become more utility in nature. So this is a quick snapshot of all of the projects where we stand. I do want to take a moment and recognize the work of Mr. Brost and his team. We were, after the issuance in September of 2023, our team went from not having a lot of resources to $200 million worth of resources. And so we were having to pick up projects from the beginning of an idea and getting them 100% in motion. And there's been a significant amount of work that has been completed. And the level of detail that is occurring with the investigations, the site coordinations, the coordination with our contractor or with our CM teams and with our architects, and with the guidance of Mr. Brost, I am incredibly impressed. I have an incredible amount of confidence in the work and the product that is coming to us. And I do believe that that is the reason why we are seeing those values on those bids come in, because our plans are tight. And our plans are tight because of the integrity of the work that's occurring with our team. And so I'm excited about that. I think it's, it's like a labor of love for this team. And we're going to be transitioning into a lot of construction, and I think that the hard work and the diligence and the guidance from Jason and the attention to that from the project managers as well, it needs to be noted, and hopefully everything's going to continue to move as seamlessly as it has been with their leadership and guidance with our program. So I think it would be remiss for me not to acknowledge that work as we continue. Okay. So really quickly, I just want to show you what else is coming. In addition to everything we just showed you, some other more significant projects that we are in the process of coordinating. This currently has a different name. I put it up here as our Rancho Del Rey campus-wide deferred maintenance project, because honestly, Rancho Del Rey is almost 27 years old. It has had little to no work done in terms of any kind of long-term maintenance or anything, but we are going to get ahead of that. And so we will be doing roofs, window replacements. There's a secondary material on the bottom of the buildings. We're going to be knocking that out, replacing it with stucco. Those are starting to age and chip. We have site work improvements we're doing. We will be painting the campus. What was that? HVAC upgrades. I mean, it's actually a very holistic approach to the campus, and so it's essentially kind of like a light modernization, if you will. And some of it is done due to the uniqueness of how it was originally installed. And then as we have started to pull some of this apart, we've also discovered some things that need to be improved in terms of drainage and other things like that to make sure our buildings are no longer compromised. And so we're putting in the time and the effort. This will end up being a fairly significant project in size and in cost, but it will put them in a place where they need to be long term. So we're excited about that. Eastlake High School Upper Field, we are starting to put together the pieces of this. The objective of this project is so that we will remove us from an MOU that we have in place with the city of Chula Vista for the fields in the park. We have research to do on this, and we will be moving forward delicately to make sure we understand the existing facility, how it originated, where the approvals do or don't lie, and what kind of accommodations we need to do, and impacts to the campus. But we are kicking that one off, and I think it'll be a big success. Adult schools, we're doing a variety of things for them. They have a significant amount of little pocket change, and so we're doing improvements with them that range from site work improvements, lighting. They've got some painting and some flooring that they're doing, and I feel like I'm missing something else. Oh, and marquees. Everybody loves a marquee. And then I do forecast that we will have some other things coming up with them. The team has been very efficient in terms of costs, and so adult school will reap the benefits of that and be able to continue to utilize their funds in a more constructive manner for facilities. And then the two last ones here are kind of hand in hand. We've come to the board for approvals on a couple of CMAS action items from the board in terms of procuring the cameras, which we are doing directly. We received those proposals on Friday afternoon. I believe the team has already done their analysis and knows what the recommendation will be moving forward in terms of their procurement process. We will have all the cameras here, and we have 5 phases of bids that will be packaged up for all the campuses. The first one is Bonita. That was our beta test site. We are happy to say that our beta test site our process has been refined enough that everything's going to roll out really closely behind that. So not by about this time next year, we will be close to putting a pin in our final phase of all cameras, each campus getting 20 security cameras on their property. So we're excited about that.
The one thing I do want to add about that project is consistently when we meet with parents, whether it's through the LCAP process or meeting with parents in different environments and different fora, they consistently raise the issue of campus safety and security. So we believe this is definitely going to be yet another tool that we have at our disposal to ensure that our parents understand that we have heard them and we are responding to apply resources to this concern that they have raised. So
Thank you. And then lastly, it would be remiss if I don't acknowledge maintenance and the work that they do. Planning and construction gets to do everything shiny and bright and pretty, but maintenance actually makes the wheels go around for us. And so this year we had the benefit of having a little bit of extra surplus from a variety of funding sources. And so this team has been putting together, and it has in motion right now over $8 million worth of work. And so it ranges, it's all up there from painting, basketball courts, asphalt, tennis courts, roofing, marquees, new carts for the school sites from an operational standpoint, tree trimming, and procurement of vehicles. And so you can see the parentheses for the schools that will benefit. But this has been a nice heavy lift for us and is going to allow us to start putting into place some replacement cycles for some of these systems on our campuses. Okay. So this last slide right here is our remaining program funding, and I wanted to bring this one back. We shared this at our last facility subcommittee. What this is a breakdown of all of the funding sources that are available from a facilities perspective. There's Prop O, a Measure DD, you see the CFDs, and then we do have a little bit of state facilities money, and I leave the general up there to drive home the point that general fund does not provide funding for capital facilities. And so we're going to just bring you back to acknowledge Prop O and Measure DD, the two numbers that are in gold for the remaining balances of those bonds. And so for Proposition O, we have $309 million, but you can see that it actually has a pretty long lifespan in it in terms of the end of when our last issuance would be. So we anticipate, I would say on average, we would be getting about $30 million every 36 months. And that could flex to 24 months, and it could go as far out as 48 months in terms of the cycle that we started when we went for our last issuance in September of 2023. Measure DD is a smaller bond in nature and also in terms of how we're able to access the funds. And so our first issuance was the $2 million that we just discussed, and you see in the 8 projects that we just outlined. And then we have a remaining balance of $204 million. Which we are targeting to go for that sale in late August, early September of 2025. And we do at this point, all things are indicating that that would be one more issuance for the completion of that bond. So I think that that's important because I want to really draw attention to the fact that right now where we sit today, we have available in front of us, I would say solidly $200 million for projects, and then occasional influxes from Prop O over the next almost potentially 20 years.
I do want to kind of hit pause on that note because we've from time to time received messages from the public about construction of a new school. And I just wanted to really briefly touch on that because as we saw during the second interim financial report that was presented at the last board meeting, we do project having a very strong declining enrollment. And so this funding is going to be appropriated for the purposes of really improving our existing sites. At this point, we don't anticipate construction of a new campus, unless something would be out of the ordinary. But at this point, again, given where we are with declining enrollment, we anticipate that most of these funds are going to go towards modernization. I just wanted to kind of real quick comment on that. And it's due to declining enrollment. And again, we highlighted that during the second interim financial report. So I just want to make a note.
Thank you, Dr. Gary. And then I think the other thing to go back on, and I touched on it a few minutes ago, our next issuance, we cannot from a district's perspective, we are not able to go for the next issuance. That's why it's pushed out to 2025 until we have expensed 85% of the funds that we see that we currently have right now. So of the 200 million, we are at 198 million that we're operating with out of Measure DD. And the 20 was like a $50 million allocation out of Prop O. We have to have 85% of that expense before the district is in a position to be able to go for the next issuance. That's part of the reason why we're also equally motivated to get those projects moving and into construction, because that's where the majority of those funds will start to burn. Okay, so any questions on this before I move forward? We do also have CFD up there. Those numbers are different today. I didn't redo that slide or ask for updated information. I just left the data from August of 2023. It's not too far out. Those monies and remaining would continue to change depending on how the payments for CFDs continue to come in by each of them. So, okay. So that would take us to kind of our next steps and questions. And so there's a few more things that I do want to highlight, and Dr. Gary kind of already touched on one of them. And this is going to transition us into the conversation really about the master plan. When we started to look at the master plan, one of the things that's sitting in front of us is the significant decline in enrollment that is headed our direction. And so that is certainly a part of our conversation. And then what does that start to mean for us in terms of a capacity perspective and a utilization of the facilities? And so when we talk about utilization, it's how we actually use them. Is a classroom? Is something used for after school programs? Is it being used for storage? Is it being used to the best of its capacity? And so those are some of the things that we were talking about. And then big picture, kind of going back to the previous slide with the 200 million plus the Prop O balances. For us, there's a task in front of us that I have identified, and it's for us to essentially develop two plans. One is, as a district, for the foreseeable future, we have the balance of Measure DD plus the balance and the duration of Prop O. And we also need to start talking about and planning for if in the event the district continues to pursue the bond that was indicated to us by the pollsters that came and shared their findings last month with us, and if the board takes action, then we would also start developing a secondary 10-year plan in the event that that comes to fruition for us in November of 2024. So two different tasks, because you would also be talking about two substantially different dollar values. And so we are going to start doing that work as we continue to proceed forward. And keeping that in mind, I'm going to transition us to talk about the master plan. So I did not include the master plan in the visual. You have a hard copy in front of you. And so I want to just kind of walk us through what the master plan means. And currently it's a draft. And so the intention right here is that we have the master plan. We are presenting it to the facility subcommittee tonight, and then it's on the board agenda for the April board meeting for the entire board of trustees for approval. And so I wanted to go ahead, and I will probably do the same presentation essentially at the April board meeting, but to walk us through what the master plan is and how it's developed. So in front of you, you have our 2024 master plan. And you also, I gave you a copy of the two pieces of paper, and that's from the 2018 master plan. I did that because I wanted to provide a sample of the master plan that was created in 2018. It's an industry standard for us that we are to update the master plan every 5 years, and that is a task that we do. Master plans should be continuous of what they were the previous 5 years and or a reflection of. And I do believe that we have done that in this process. And so our 2024 master plan is a validation and a refinement of the 2018 plan. And I think you'll see when we get to the back, our need is always significantly greater than our resources. So high level, the objectives for the master plan were to understand the impacts ahead of us, declining enrollment, cleaning up the visual palettes through consolidation and efficiency of school site facilities. As an example, we're working with Mar Vista Academy right now in terms of the new project they have, and our project manager is working hand in hand with the principal about kind of what Classroom Django will look like what it is now, what it will look like during construction, and where classrooms will be placed afterwards. Because at the end of that project, and you'll see in our master plan when we go to that page in a little bit, we are removing portable classrooms from that property. And so it becomes a huge level of movement, and the construction actually provides a great opportunity for that to occur in addition to any other programs and or after-school programs the school site may have. And then also lastly, one of our goals is reducing our footprint, but in a natural way. And back in the 80s and 90s, school districts were required to install portable classroom buildings. And so that's the first easy place for us to start in terms of reducing our footprint, allowing our maintenance resources to become more focused on our permanent structures, and it really does clean up our campuses in a significant way. Okay, so we're going to jump into the master plan. You can see our beautiful cover. I have to give our architect team that created this some kudos on that. Each one of these pictures is actually a snapshot of one of our programs or a part of our campuses, and they really did do a beautiful job in terms of that. Obviously, I'm not going to go into every single, let me be clear. We are not going to go through this entire master plan right now. I'm going to introduce to you the structure of the master plan and the why of the master plan, and then you'll have ample time to go through this on your own space and time, and then for us to also talk about some more in April. So we have our table of contents, and then so the master plan, the intent was an evaluation of our need, combined with developing vision for the campus and the district, and placing them on what we call our conceptual site master plan. So each school site has a conceptual master plan, and then we, Jason, myself, the team, use it as a tool for facilities planning and for program and for costs. And this is a living document as we move forward. We are finally at a place, like if we were still operating off the 2018 master plan, and I think it would be an exercise worth us doing, we would go in, and our original intention was every year we would come in and check off all those boxes that we've completed. Well, then we had a very long pause in program for a while. And so we're finally at a place that we would actually this year have a lot of boxes to check in this next year, which is kind of exciting. So we will resume that so we can start to track the progress of the work completed. Okay, so your master plan includes the district mission. If you went to page 4, it says district profile, and it has our district mission statement, our beliefs, and our LCAP goals as a baseline foundation for us. I'm not going to go into those. You know them quite well. And I think the leadership team is also included on that page at this time. And then within the executive summary, there are 3 main elements that we focused on. Again, demographics. It's a theme, right? The demographics, the enrollment, what's happening there. And then the facilities, the visions, and the goals to the facility improvement, whether it be modernization, new construction, and or deferred maintenance. Good afternoon, Dr. Adencibia.
Thank you, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. We'll take a moment, let you get settled, and we can continue. You tell me when you're ready.
Ready to go.
Okay. And so we're on page 5 of the master plan, looking at the executive summary. I'm not going into great detail. I'll allow you all the time and space after the meeting to read it in detail. And then the last piece, the main component on page 6 is cost estimating, which is one of the most essential pieces for us in terms of the master plan. So let's go ahead and flip to page 7. The document is broken down by middle schools, high schools, and adult schools, in addition to alternative education and special education programs. If you go to page, I gave you each a yellow sticky to Mar Vista Academy. So if you flip to the yellow sticky that's in your binder, you'll go to the first page of Mar Vista Academy. And this is the standard for which each of them sites was developed. They have a site summary page, which has data for each of the campuses, so your constructed enrollment, square footage, their acreage, the number of portable classrooms and permanent classrooms, in addition to their mission statement. Are we all there?
Mine's actually tabbed to Chula Vista. I'm sorry. 23. I'll go ahead.
My apologies, sir. Page 26.
25.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, so you see your summary page. And then the second page is the site master plan itself. And so, Dr. Adencibi, really quickly, in your package, I set them up there. You also have a 2-page copy of Mar Vista Academy from the 2018 master plan. So when you look at that master plan, one, aesthetically, there is a difference between the two plans. I think we have a much more mature, more refined document in front of us in terms of the 2024. Some areas of note on the 2018, you'll see there's like a Google Earth map, and that's color-coded. The reason why we had that was at the time, and back when I first got here, and not too long after, when Dr. Aguirre was here as well, we were doing some assessments of the facility conditions, and one of the things that most of our campuses did not have, and you see that in red, was air conditioning. We went back in several years ago and put in district-wide air conditioning.
Oh, there's really some of the schools that actually lack.
We actually are down to, I think,
Back
like
then.
maybe 3 gyms that don't have air conditioning. And they're on our list. And so anyway, we no longer needed that reference. So we took that off. But we kept the same fundamentals in terms of the 18 to the 2024, in terms of how projects were identified, and the kind of a color coding system as well. So in the 2024 master plan, there's actually, you see, like we highlighted in the gray, previous work completed. And that goes back as far as Measure BB, anything that occurred under Prop O, and anything we currently have in design and headed for construction in Measure DD. So when you look at Mar Vista's master plan, you'll see on the map side, in events and student services building, that is the new building that I just showed you in the PowerPoint. So we've already put that into like the completed pile. And so if that was not the case, if this was something that we were forecasting to happen on our next issuance, those buildings would actually be orange, because on our other on the other slides, orange means new construction. So we've gone through and we've highlighted work completed. Every single conceptual site master plan has a security and safety section. They all have the same information, because our intention is that every single campus would have those same elements built in terms of the cameras, the fencing, the access, and the lighting. Dotted hashed green lines mean site improvements. Site improvements generally are going to be around fields or quad improvements, things that would benefit student experience. Modernization is in the light blue. And so that for like Mar Vista, we would be indicating that the balance of their buildings would be modernized. And so those are in blue. They also have a dark blue, which is kind of funny because you can't really see it. One of the things that you don't notice on Mar Vista's plan is that, and we actually need to go in and indicate this, I'm noticing that as I'm saying it out loud differently. If you look at their 2018 master plan, up on the kind of dead center, there's a letter R and there's a bunch of portables. You'll notice in the 2024, those portables are gone because they will be removed at the completion of the construction. And that is one of our main objectives, is to clean the palette of the campuses by reducing our building footprints, by reducing and eliminating the portables on the campuses as we can. And we have that for every single one of the projects that is in design right now.
And something that Ms. Quirk mentioned earlier is that aligns with what we anticipate will be a decline in enrollment. So we're going to need less of a physical footprint. And so that's why removing reloads
Is there any
is
kind
what
of
it does.
savings by getting rid of the portables by any chance?
So that's actually a great question, and it's on my to-do list. I want us to start working with IES, who's our energy management consultant. So I do believe absolutely, right? You have less gas running for mechanical units, electrical running for lights, and so we'll do a benchmark, because I want us to track that of where we stand today and what those costs are. We're always competing with the increased utility costs, but IES is really good. That's what they do. So as we refine those buildings and remove them, we can begin to say, hey, we saw a reduction in utility costs, even if it's by $10. That will start to add up.
And are those owned or are those leased?
We own everything. The only buildings that are leased on our district right now there are actually 6 portables at Olympian, which Jason and his team are removing with the construction of the new building. Okay. Everything else we've owned, and most of them have been here since the mid-'80s to mid-'90s.
So what will we do with the surplus portables that we have?
So most of those are ready to just be gone.
Most of them have met their
that's what I'm
life
saying.
cycle.
Do they just go to?
No, so we have to remove them from our assets. There's two things that will ultimately happen. One, within our district assets and for what we report to the county for JPA, those buildings would be removed once we do the demolition and we file the paperwork for that to happen. The other thing that has to happen, and I've already initiated it, is our consultant, school facility consultants that helps us with our funding applications. So going all the way back to when school sites are built, they are reported at CDE for their square footage, what their enrollment was from the time that they were originally built, and they also track the requirement that was in place back in the 80s and 90s for the installation of portables, because those are all considered permanent square footage for us now. So I've already started that process with our consultant. We'll figure out our reporting program for that so that we can start to remove those from our permanent recordings at the state, in addition to what we have on our inventory here with us at the district and at the county level.
Could those actual buildings be sold? Donated for credit?
So most of those buildings are just like a structural frame with walls, many of them which are
I
have
taught 'em.
termites and not so
I taught
likely.
in them,
Yes.
so I know.
So typically we would not do that. Also, it puts us in a position of liability in terms of selling and some other things. Also, depending on how long they've been there, there's no guarantee in terms of was there lead paint used on them. I mean, there's a variety. From a risk management perspective, we would not. We would demolish them and send them onto their next best selves in whatever form that is.
And the savings would actually come about simply because those aren't insulated well. You're wasting money on heating and cooling. So those are the things that one can automatically assume that there's going to be some savings there in terms of electricity and gas.
And more importantly too, in terms of both of those things, and then also the resources from our maintenance department, right? So they're constantly having to, glue and tape those buildings together, replacing mechanical units, and so that's actually where we would see some more significant savings, is that we would be able to take our resources and focus them on our new buildings and the buildings that are already been modernized or are permanent in nature. Okay. Okay, so are there any questions in terms of the site plan itself? Is it intuitive to you? Does it make sense? We are available for feedback now, or if you go home and you start combing through this, we're still through the combing through process. This is still, technically a draft form until it's adopted when we bring it forward in April. So if you go home and you start going through this, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email and have us ponder that and figure out, make sure it all makes sense, because we want everybody to read it and understand it. Yes, ma'am.
Removal of portable buildings, 400 and 500. So are there other buildings at the end of the week that are going to be removed?
No, it's the
They're already they're gone.
They already are.
Yes, but we have them here, and that's you see it when you go to the next page. Actually, when you go to the budget, so flip to the next page. It's the cost sheet for each of the projects. So that blue on the site map actually makes more sense when you see the costs associated to it on the cost estimating sheet. Okay.
It's $500,000 just to get rid of them.
They're not cheap. And the other thing with many of them, like our plan originally, even at Castle Park, was to remove like 10 of them. Bonita had, I think we were originally tracking, I'm going to make up a number. Jason might shake his head in disagreement. I'm going to say 8. And at Granger, we are looking at 6, I think, portables. Many of them, though, the electrical or the gas or other things are daisy chained to other things. And so we're having to pivot a little bit. But that's what Jason and his team will go pull apart for us. We will get there. It's not, some of them will happen with the project. Some of them we're going to create a secondary project because we need to make sure that there's still connection to certain other places.
The one note I will make is, or ask, is as we decommission these portable buildings, make sure we're also decommissioning the service meters, because sometimes that can be overlooked. Because then that would allow us to bring some of the savings, whether it's water meter or electrical meter.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so on the cost estimating sheet, there's a lot of information. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to tell you how it's conceptually built. You see in the left column is the project identified. So whether it be security cameras or hardcore improvements or modernization, some of these would have new construction indicated. We've done the quantity and the takeoffs and the unit, so the square footage or linear square foot and a cost per unit. we don't do this. We have our architect team that we work with. Their estimating team does all of these sorts of things. We have high-level construction subtotal, and then the overhead and profit. Those are all costs that are built into our projects. If it's something where we thought that there was going to be hazmat or demo, we had a 10% embedded into that because it's a cost that gets lost a lot of time in projects. We have that built in, and you can see that on the bottom part when we get to the modernization, that 10% is built in there. And then we have an escalation factor. Escalation is down here. We make a note for you, and escalation is assumed at 5% to a midpoint of construction for May of 2029. So any work that occurs after May of 2029, that escalator just keeps adding.
A way of counterbalancing the inflation that we're considering might be averse in our budget, right?
Yes. Which takes me to the next column, which is our contingency. And so this contingency is a rolled up value for us. We didn't put all of our business out there because there's some rhyme and reason to that. But this is our contingency, and then the soft costs. And so soft costs are your architects, your engineers, any testing that we need to do in preparation of construction, et cetera. And then you see a subtotal and then a site total for each of the programs. So each one of the master plans is developed the same way. Again, because Mar Vista, if we had left their events building and their student services building as not completed yet, those would be orange on their site map for new construction, and there would be an orange column on the estimating sheet for new construction. Yes, but because we already have those, I shared the renderings for that project, we're checking that box now, just so we can then take those costs out. Otherwise, it would continue to inflate what is already a pretty significant number once we get to the back page.
One last question, have the numbers for raw materials come
No.
down this year?
Absolutely not. So it's interesting. We saw COVID, everything spiked. About a year ago, there was maybe a plateau.
Yeah.
And then one of our CM teams is really diligent about sending us like quarterly reports. And it was kind of stunning. In this one we received maybe 8 weeks ago, those costs have upticked again. Not just for material costs, but labor.
Yeah. Well, labor is,
But
we're in the great correction of labor. I was wondering just whether or not the demand that has eased off from China has actually started to affect the markets in terms of construction.
it's a moving target. And, I'm going to give the credit to Jason and his team. I was sharing before about the excellent level of diligence they're putting into their projects. And that's why we've seen a reduction by $2 million on bid day for our two projects we've just done, which is significant. This has been interesting for us. I mean, we're talking to our CM teams like $2 million, like the estimating, it's interesting. It's a unique philosophy in terms of how they do estimating. It's not a perfect science by any stretch of the imagination. And so we're still pulling that apart because we were looking for a pattern too, right? So we're hoping we see those same things as we continue to bid the multiple projects in front of us. What I would say is that we are not seeing a reduction in costs. We're hoping for a continued stabilization. But it also is things like the electrical gear, right? You've all approved some funding on that because there are certain things that have huge lead times. Like we're talking like a year for electrical gear, which you used to be able to get in 8 weeks. And so the team is putting those things into consideration as well and putting the pieces in place so that we're not moving farther behind. And then because the longer it takes to get into construction, the more likely is that the costs are going to continue to go up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so if there's no questions here, then I'm going to kind of skip towards the back, and you don't have to skip there. I'll just tell you what it is. Bottom line, in the back, there's multiple funding sheets. There's one broken down by the total cost for middle schools, one for high schools, one for adult schools, one for alternative ed and special education. Our entire dollar value for this master plan in 2018, for I would say pretty comparable master plans, was I think 1.5 billion, and today we're sitting at $3.1 billion. So, we also, in the very back, we did the very last page, we have demographics information, and that is one thing we have to hyperlink in is the 2018 demographics report. And then when the 2024, we are redoing a validation of the 2018, because 2018 showed us having a really significant decline between year 7 to 10. And so we're redoing that right now to have them validate if that trajectory is accurate, consistent, and there's a lot of information. And then we'll put that in here as well. And then those things we'll be taking into consideration as we continue to kind of pivot and make plans for our best way to move forward. So that is the presentation of the master plan in itself. We are open to questions, comments, feedback.
From a comments perspective, I just want to say I appreciate how thoughtful the planning has been, because to really anticipate some of this decline and to be able to address it via removal of reloads, for example, how can we make our facilities more efficient? I think those are really thoughtful ways of addressing this decline in enrollment, so we don't have to face more draconian decisions. So at least it kind of gets us in a process that's progressive and it's phased in, rather than, again, going to more draconian positions that we may have had to consider otherwise. So I think that's really thoughtful.
I would also like to say, even though this document is huge and overwhelming, it is understandable for the layman person. I get it.
And I would suggest that we actually make parts of this. I mean, I don't know how much you want to make public. You probably want to make it public just because,
So it'll go public when we advertise. Well, I didn't link it for today. It's so significant, depending on if you said, Janaea, this is not what we want, then I wanted to make sure we were all moving in the same direction. So for April board, it will be public. The other thing is we won't be printing this and sending this everywhere.
No.
So I printed it for you because I really do think and would ask that you do take some time at home and go through this and make sure it continues to make sense, that you don't, we look at this, and even though we looked at it 100 times, when you're grading your own paper, you're like, oh, how did I miss that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff here. And so I think we've done a pretty good job, but somebody else's eyes may see something slightly different, so we're open for that. This is actually going to be a linked document. You can see on the bottom where it has a table of contents, it's blue, this is a hyperlinked, and so this will not be, it'll be on our website, readily available for people to see. And I cannot stress enough that this is a reference document. A master plan is a roadmap to which you kind of keep yourselves calibrated. It by no means means that everything that's in here is going to happen. Again, Dr. Adencibi, right before you came in, I was just sharing, and I'll go back to it really fast. I don't know if you remember this slide. It was different colors back in August when we did the last facility subcommittee, and I was really honing in on the fact that right now, as a district, we have $200 million left of DD for our next issuance, which we're forecasting for the fall of 2025. And then an ongoing almost up to 20 years worth of little allocations out of Prop O. Right now, those are the only funds that we have. And so we are going to begin working on two plans. Two 10-year plans. One is, what are we doing with these remaining dollars? And in my mind, that is a very refined approach where we are really focusing on the security of the perimeter security of our campuses, lighting, cameras, fencing, painting, and curb appeal. Because $200 million with the number of campuses we have, it doesn't go very far in today's dollars. And then the secondary 10-year plan, which we will start to map out if there is an indication from the board in the coming months that we're going to pursue a new bond, then we would take those allocations that the polling company shared with you all last month at the board meeting for what was forecasted in there, and we would start making a secondary plan in the event that came to fruition. But we are potentially looking at two very different paths. No matter what, Dr. Aguirre already hit on it, we are looking at a very refined approach no matter what we do. We are not talking big, new, glamorous, anything. There may be some new, but it's going to be very specific, just so we can also maintain equity in terms of the work that we're doing. And so we'll be coming back. Right now, in my mind, regardless, I think that we're coming back as a subcommittee probably in August, so that we can really start talking on a different level about how some of those things might work, because there's a level of education that needs to happen in terms of the why especially if those Davis demographics number come back and really show us that that's where we are truly headed. There is a fundamental shift that we need to make with the way that we utilize our facilities. And I think that there's a really constructive opportunity in there. And it's going to take everybody in this room and also getting our principals. And I think we've had the pleasure of seeing really good demonstrations of that with our project managers working with our principals and with Mr. Brust in terms of Mar Vista Academy is a great example of, okay, Principal Scott, this is what our objective is. This is what we're doing. Our goal is to get rid of these portables, reduce your footprint, and increase your efficiency from a facilities perspective. And that's happening. And that's the kind of thing I'll share with you in August. There's like there's like an existing color-coded map. Here's what's happening during construction. Here's what it looks like afterwards. And it explains to you the uses, the why, and the how. And it's thoughtful work, and it's work that we'll be needing to ask everybody to do so we can continue to maintain the integrity of where we currently stand today as a district with our facilities.
And with that, I think we are ready to adjourn. I really want to, again, say thank you for the very thoughtful way that this information was organized, all the due diligence that went into it. I think this will help our district immensely in terms of making really wise decisions with our facilities so we can truly maximize the resources that we have been entrusted with. So thank you. With that, I believe we're adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Very patient.